And that actually brings us to the next talk, because as you all know, we think of ourselves as aware people who look at things and then make decisions, but actually it's not us in charge. It's our brain that decides for us. And I think you all have heard about optical illusions, but you haven't heard what Arzu has to say about it.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm going to try to make give it a little spin to it, so maybe we can learn something from illusions. Right, so we are all very visual people, and that's not our fault. According to some neuroscientists, 40% of our brain is busy processing visual input. It's a lot of our brain capacity that goes into the visual input. This leads to some phrases like, I see, to say, I understand. Or we say insight, to actually refer to a deeper comprehension of some sort. Or we say, I'll believe it when I see it. Now we take a little journey into that 40% and see if we should believe what we see. So this is the very well-known, almost all of you have seen this throughout your school years probably, illusion of distance or length or size of the bar, the line. If you need to estimate it, you could actually tell me, probably sign your name in a court paper, that one is actually longer than the others, the one in the middle. And it's not. We can take a ruler, we can measure it, and we know that it's not. This kind of illusion is an abstract illusion. You can see that in such non-contextual environment, but even when you give a context to it, it occurs. So when you are trying to plan using a roadmap, you are not necessarily free from this illusion. If you are trying to choose the shortest path, you may not be able to choose the shortest path just based on your perception. This is sort of a near geographic representation, and the red lines are of the same size. This applies to the size as well, not only to the length or distance estimations. Inherently spatial and geographic is also to try to understand the size of something. Is one thing bigger than the other? And we associate meaning to this in cartography very strongly. We represent information in which we say the larger objects carry a bigger count. It means more people, it means more disease, it means more of whatever you imagine to map. In this case, here, it's about the length of your look at a particular object. It's your gaze length that gets represented with a larger circle. In the previous slide, the size of the orange circle is identical, even though your brain, within that 40% power that it puts into, will tell you otherwise. Here, you don't have particularly this effect, but perceptual cartographers will know this for a long time and have come up with something called perceptual scaling, which even made it into default software, because we are not good at estimating the size of circles. We underestimate the size of circles, especially when the distance between them grows. So this keeps going. I have 2 more examples, or maybe 3. And one of the other strong things that we use in visualizations is color. And in this particular example, it looks like the frames are actually colored blue, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of different shade of yellow or green, but in fact it's all white inside. What's happening here is that the inner lining of this particular frame bleeds, and that's your brain failing to see the white because it's next to a particular color. This can express itself in a sort of a map-like thing, if you like. This could be the Mediterranean, so it's a hand-drawn illustration. And you see there's a yellow lining in here, and it makes the land look kind of yellowish and the sea white. And you have the opposite here. You move the yellow lining in here, and the land is white, and the sea is yellow. They are all white, in fact, for reality. Yet another one about color is the surrounding colors. You might have also seen that, but if you look at this one only on the top, you will see that the word white is lighter than the word black. But that's actually the opposite. If you remove the surrounding colors and just leave it with a white background, you will see the effect changes. And this goes on with this example, which many of you might know, and I think that actually expresses very much what we do with thematic mapping. When we actually use choroplasts, we use areas. We say, for example, area A has a higher population density than area B. And for my brain, I imagine for also most of you, this is clearly darker than that. And I know many of you know this is coming. It really isn't. So A and B has exactly the same physical values. This can happen because of the surrounding colors and the shadow effects. Being aware of such things in a real map, this is also a mock-up map, but it could have been a thematic map, would make you design maps in a different way. And in this particular study, telling A whether this is the same with B or if it's different than B becomes pretty hard. And the distance between the color values, as well as distance between the two locations, influences the way you can tell two colors or two shades apart. Another one that's relevant to geographic visualizations is a 3D illusion. This is called the Necker cube. Necker was a Swiss scientist, by coincidence, who observed this the first time. If you stare at this corner for a little bit, this corner will jump at you as a convex shape, and in a second, or for me maybe it's under a second, it reverts back to a concave shape. It goes up, it goes down. It's a hill, now it's a pit. And this happens with us also with masks. It's a mask. As you rotate the mask, you're supposed to see the nose as a concave object, but your brain tells, nah, the nose cannot be concave. And even if your perception tells you that this is, in fact, a concave object, you cannot tell that. You would sign under a document in a legal case that this is, in fact, a face that you see from front. Here's another example of hollow mask illusion with a dragon. You can make this at home yourself, and if you haven't yet, you can pick a print on the way out. Let's see why we have this. It looks like it's following you. It's a cute dragon. Okay, and here we reveal the secret of the dragon. What you have been looking at the whole time was a concave face. And as soon as you are back in the right position, your brain will correct for it. There you are. So dragon is back to normal. Now you're going to say, well, is that really geography? Well, yes, there is a little bit of geography for it. We look at terrains, and we look at terrains using relief maps. They are shaded maps that shows us hills and valleys, or we look at them using aerial photographs. This first one, A here, is the original photograph that was served by Google Maps, and you can go find it also today. And here, when I look at this very point, I see a pit and not a peak. It looks like a ditch. If I rotate this image 180 degrees, no other changes, the peak becomes a peak. How many of you see this one as a peak? Nobody. Right. We asked this to about 535 people in an online survey, and there's about 60 to 80% agreement in the aerial photographs about what's a valley and what's a ridge, and most of the time people have this illusion, especially in the northern hemisphere. You can correct for this by rotating it, but you lose your north reference. You can correct for this by inverting the colors. The peak becomes a peak, but then you lose the color information. And just to convince you that I'm telling the truth, here is the reference map. This is a terrain model. You can see that this is supposed to be a peak. We have some solutions for that. It's not impossible. In another study relating to that, we also wanted to see if this you know, when I said 60 to 80% agreement between people, I wondered what is about that 20 to 40% of the people, because with the hollow mask illusion, those who do not get fooled by the illusion seems to be schizophrenia patients, and I don't think there are that many geographers who are schizophrenic. So I wondered what's going on. So we have looked into this, and apparently people do get these cues from the snow. I mean, here what you're looks like a ridge to almost everybody. And here, it still looks like a ridge, but some people start to say green because there is snow on the valley floors, and that it cannot be. But with this, I'm going to tell you that this little journey inside that 40% of your brain might have left you disoriented, and I apologize for that. I can't fix the brain, but we can definitely design the visualizations, try to make it easier for you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Arzu. That was great. You can't fix the brain, you said, but I wonder, can you train illusion resistance? I have this feeling that nobody's going to fool you anymore.
Well, that wouldn't be me, but somebody maybe who's doing psychology as their major might have attempted that. I am not aware of any training effect, but maybe with some illusions you can.
But is that sort of overruling what you see? I'm seeing this, but I'm really not seeing it. Or do you actually see it different if you train yourself?
Well, the thing with the hollow mask illusion, that's just not possible. Even when you know that even when you know that it's tricky, it doesn't change the perception. And it's the same thing with the terrain. Even when you tell people that this is actually a valley, they just like, I don't see it. That looks like a ridge. So in terms of knowledge, it doesn't help. But maybe for some other illusions, in terms of judging the sizes and distances, that maybe perhaps there's some training effect. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arzu.